wage negotiations between Numsa and the Automobile Manufacturers Employers Organization are still ongoing. Workers want a 20% pay increase. Numsa represents over 300,000 workers employed by manufacturing companies, car dealerships, as well as petrol stations. The union spokesperson, Pagamile Majola, joins us in studio with the latest on the negotiations. Pagamile, thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. I mean, there are various demands that have been put on the table here, especially when it comes to exactly what you're looking at as Numsa. Wage increases, medical aid, I think that is one of it. Where are you at?
Thank you for having me, Faith. Yes, this is in respect specifically to workers in the Motor Industry Bargaining Council, MIBCO. We have tabled several demands, and where we are at this point is we find ourselves deadlocked with the Motor Industries Bargaining Council. This is a council which represents the Fuel Retail Association, for example, garage owners, components, manufacturers, etc. And it's an industry that employs over 300,000 workers. The main issue is, the way we see it, we feel as if employers are not engaging meaningfully with all our demands. We've tabled several demands. One of the key demands, of course, being the wage demand. In this case, in the motor industries, it's 12% across the board. We've also tabled a demand for indeed an industry medical aid, but also one of the sticking points is the fact that we want this industry to have a travel allowance, particularly for garage workers who are working late at night. The lack of a transport allowance or a night shift allowance has detrimental impact on garage workers. Many of them, when they're traveling late at night because of their hours, are victims of muggings and sexual assault. And these for us are demands that really are a sticking point. So we are expecting to meet with them again at the end of this month on the 29th of August. We are hoping that this last-ditch effort will assist us to actually make progress. But if we are not able to make progress, then unfortunately we will have to lodge a dispute with the CCMA. And if that process fails to resolve our issues, then we will be headed for a strike.
Tell me this, we've got the employer that has basically come to the table to answer one of those demands, and that, of course, that is related to the wage increase. I mean, they're saying that they want to give about 4.5% increase that they're willing to actually put across the board now. That's the 4.5. And they're not engaging on the other items such as medical aid. I mean, the travel allowances you're mentioning here. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's very worrying because there are very serious issues that have been raised by our members. They've actually come back to put it a wage of 5% across the board over a 3-year period. And one of our issues is that we cannot agree, for example, to a 3-year agreement, because one of the sticking points that's also on the table is the fact that under the MIBCO, the Motor Industries Bargaining Council, we are unable to negotiate issues of mutual interest or any issues that affect workers outside of the wage talk. So in other words, once you've signed the wage agreement, you are then stuck with that agreement for 3 years, and if there's any other issues that come up, you can't do anything to bargain. You have to wait until the agreement lapses. And that for us is deeply problematic. We've said that we cannot commit to a long-term agreement until we deal with this very serious issue. So for us, it's very worrying that employers in the sector are not willing to engage in detail with each and every demand that we've placed on the table, because all of these issues speak directly to the conditions of workers on the ground.
And I don't want to take the conditions of the workers on the ground lightly, Pagamile, but allow me to play devil's advocate for a little bit here. We've got 306,000 individuals that are currently working within the motoring industry. We do understand the fact that if there's a shutdown, as we've seen in previous years of such an industry, that it does affect exports. It affects South Africa's credibility and its ability to actually produce. It affects the way in which manufacturing sectors actually operate and the vehicles that they're supposed to export. So then the people that end up not benefiting in the end as a result of exports being low, as a result of the credibility of South Africa's manufacturing sector actually going low, are the very same workers. How then do you start responding to that? And where do you find middle ground?
Well, that's one of the challenges that we're facing in the sector. You're also talking about challenges that we're facing in the auto sector. In the auto sector, we are also deadlocked. And of course, this is going to have a major impact in terms of the automotive companies that are manufacturing cars in our country. It's going to have an impact, as you say, in terms of exports, etc. But at the end of the day, we are a union, and a union's role, first and foremost, and its loyalty is with its members. And our members have made very specific demands in both motor and in auto, because their conditions are forcing them to make these demands. And it is important that whilst we also have to be thinking about the impact of the economy, the employers should actually do the same. They should engage with us meaningfully on the demands that we have tabled. They should try and find us on the demands that we have tabled, because the issues that our members have raised are literally bread and butter issues. These are workers who are not just supporting themselves because of the lack of growth in the economy and the high rate of joblessness. They are also supporting 5 to 7 extended family members. So all of these issues come into play, and this is why we need government to assist us in actually coming up with progressive workplace policies that can allow us to find each other in a constructive way, so that we don't have to resort to strikes.
You know why I'm asking this? I'm asking this question because of this fourth industrial revolution, right? If it should happen, and you're absolutely correct, when it comes to the role of the union is to represent the workers, but unfortunately we have to work in a situation where we don't want the very same workers being affected, the very same who lose out in the end because of certain mitigating factors. So for example, if employers should turn around one day and you say, you know what, actually it's more affordable to hire robots. It's more affordable to hire robots who will then do the job for less the time, more accurately, more efficiently, and they don't protest. How then as a union do you respond to that? Because you know that when it comes to the motoring industry, new innovations always shifting, and they do look at how is it that they can meet the bottom line. I'm saying that if these arguments should come up and say, you know what, it's becoming expensive to have 306,000 people in this. Rather, we cut the jobs, we get the robots, they're more efficient, they don't go on strike, and that's how we're going to be able to make up for the manufacturing industry. How then does the union respond to that?
Well, that's exactly one of our biggest challenges. We know very well that in both auto and motor, some changes have taken place in terms of mechanization, particularly in the auto sector. They've already introduced robots in certain parts of the production line, and of course this has had an impact in terms of jobs and employment. But you see, what you're raising two issues here. There's issues that we can fight as a union, but there's issues that government should also be thinking about, especially a progressive government that cares, if it does, about the workforce. When you talk about the fourth industrial revolution, that is something that if you have a government that is a caring government, first of all, and second of all, a government that is progressive, then the fourth industrial revolution should pose no threat to any member of the working class, because that government will be thinking in terms of how can we as a government ensure that our workforce is protected. The thing about the fourth industrial revolution is it affects all workers in all sectors. So even yourself could find yourself replaced by a robot doing exactly the same kind of work. It is a transition to a new technology. And what we know about technology is that it's supposed to improve human lives. It's supposed to improve how we live. And if, as a government, we are thinking clearly about this process, then we would be progressive enough to say that in order for us to ensure that we don't create mass unemployment because of the arrival of this new technology, we are going to dictate and say that we want to own some of that technology for the benefit of the population. That is the best way to actually deal with the fourth industrial revolution. What we then have to do as a union, which is what we're doing currently as Numsa, is we do a lot of work in research. Our Numsa Research and Policy Institute does a lot of research. They tour all over the country and across the globe, looking at the impact of fourth industrial revolution on the production line. They come up with strategies and policies which the union can then adopt to try and prepare the workforce. But But we are not a government. We are merely a trade union. A lot of this work would have to take place at that level in order for us to actually mitigate against even far more job losses than what we're expecting to experience in this country with some of the changes that are coming into various sectors.
We're going to leave our conversation there, but thanks for joining us this afternoon and shedding some light there in terms of that wage negotiation, which is still ongoing.